Hi, everyone, and thanks for listening. There is no other way that I can do this particular video and be nice, um, except maybe I guess not use a lot of profanity, I suppose. But I don't really do a lot of profanity in my video commentary when I'm talking because I really want to get down to the point, or at least some of the opinions or some of the issues that I've heard from different various people that live here, primarily in California. And California, Los Angeles, is a sanctuary city. And there's been a lot of swirling debates. Um, there's been the issue of sanctuary cities, whether we should keep the sanctuary cities or do away with sanctuary cities. There's also been the issue of DACA, whether they should keep the program of DACA or if they should get rid of DACA. And there's been a whole host of issues um, that have come up. So I'm looking right now. DACA is immigration equality, and it is deferred action for childhood arrivals. And so I'm sure that more people are full aware of it. If you look it up online, you'll see that DACA, on June 15, 2012, President Obama created that policy calling deferred action for certain undocumented, and I stress that certain undocumented young people who came to the U.S. as children. So the problem with this program for some people is they feel that quote quote term anchor baby, it's just a way to get in America free. It's like a get in free card, or it's just a sly way of being able to use the babies as pawns so you can reap the rewards and get in America like a pass, and building on the, I guess, what some people view it as is you use the baby as a pawn so people can have sympathy for a person with children coming from or fleeing from a country, and they use the babies as a ticket to get in free, to reap the rewards of welfare benefits, um, maybe housing, education, and whatever benefits that they can reap under that program, and whatever other programs they can get under. They use the babies as pawns. So you see some clips of some veterans and some people who are homeless. They are U.S. American citizens, and they've served for the country, but they're also struggling. They are not able, certain veterans are not able to receive benefits. These are some of the arguments I'm just bringing up that some people have brought to the forefront, that they can't receive certain benefits that some of these people coming from other countries are receiving open-heartedly. And so there's this debating and fighting back and forth, that here you've got people who are undocumented and they're breaking the law of American government and they're receiving benefits, and you have people who are legal citizens and they can't find shelter, they can't find places to stay, they can't find the same benefits readily available to them as do some of these women who primarily they'll come, already pregnant, or they'll come here and have more and more babies with the expectation to receive more and more welfare benefits, which the argument is that American tax dollars, or people who are taxpayers here, citizens, are paying for these anchor babies. Now, the anchor baby term is supposedly a negative connotation or term, in terms of liberal talk, um, down talk towards liberals, um, from the right. And that is primarily what I've heard, but it's also a term used to classify or say that someone is coming from another place and they're having babies and using the babies as a get-in free card so that they can reap benefits. And the problem with all of this is, now this is the big thing I saw recently. You have some black Americans who complain about not being able to find jobs, or if they find jobs they're not treated fair, or they're not hired, but they're in support of some of these programs which don't support them as black Americans. Now, as black Americans, we've had, even with black American veterans, they've had trouble being treated fairly simply because of the color of the skin and their racial background. And there's been a lot of discrimination in jobs and housing and in schooling, and histories of systematic discrimination. And some people feel like, oh, we should support other minorities who are also facing discrimination. But when you really consider, do these other minorities support you? And that is the question. So that question has been raised more recently. So I've seen some videos pop up with people who are being honest. They're African American or African black people who have raised the arguments that although we have some similar issues, or some similar issues, not the same, we're not treated fairly. For one, I can say you saw the woman with the baby and in the stroller, and then the woman who's pregnant, and the thing about DACA and taxpayers paying for these babies, and the women seem to have babies like very frequent. Well, now, as I recall, when black women had babies and they were on the welfare and they had lots of babies, and I feel like it happened more in the 70s and in the 80s and maybe parts of the early 90s, black women were always discouraged at having babies. There's been all kinds of history of discriminating black women from, having more children. And it's been attributed to a historical system of racism. And also there's been the thing with eugenics. There's been sterilization, where black women, some have been lied to and told to not have babies, or threatened by government agencies that if they have an X amount of kids, that they will no longer receive government assistance. And so the same systems that have treated black women with a lot of discrimination and hatred, and I'm going to say that, hatred of the culture of just black people, and have labeled black women as welfare queens, is the same system that is opening their doors up to people whom, because they don't look black, or they're not claiming black, even if they have maybe somebody in their family that's black, they look more Hispanic, or they look more white, or they claim white status. They're giving them money. They're allowing them the get free pass. They're allowing them amnesty. They're allowing them, all the benefits that they don't allow American citizens. Simply because you're a different race and you're a different color and you don't look white. And so when this woman you see here, and the man is with her, and they look like a beautiful, happy family. But what's the difference with this picture? The picture before showed a woman that was black. She was by herself, and she looked like she was downtrodden, and she could barely get by in life. And there's no man there, no father, nobody cares about the kids. And here you got this woman with a bunch of kids. She could be doing the same exact thing. She could be milking the system the same way. It's just a different way, a different person doing this. And she's got the go ahead, the green light to go ahead and do this because they feel sympathy. The government feels this sympathy for these particular individuals. So if you're going to be fair straight across the board. If you're going to tell one group where tax dollars are going to feed these babies and schooling these babies, and you're not raising them correctly, or you're just taking advantage and milking the system, then you do that with everyone the same way. It's unfair to do one group one way because they're black and the other group another way because they look like they're closer to white, or they look like they're not black, or they get the get in free card, and you feel sympathy for them because of the fact that they have all these issues and they're bringing their poverty here, as opposed to you being a born raised citizen and you've had poverty thrust upon you. So there's somewhat of a slight difference rather than similarity. And so this is a graph of some of the complaints. Some people have complained about losing jobs to people who come from other places who don't have citizenship, and employers hiring people who they feel that they can get over, and beat the IRS or whatever. They're saving a buck, or they've got cheap labor, and then they don't hire blacks because they have discriminative practices, or they don't hire whatever their bias is, or they hire a small number of people and they use them up, find them expendable, and then you've got a lot of people saying now we've got higher taxes because you've got all these people here that are undocumented, and you're basically giving them the green light to break the law. What you're saying, some American people, okay, are saying, you're saying that it's okay for one group to break the law but others can't, and Americans will be on hold for American people who they don't have homes, they don't have schooling, they don't have shelter, they're not getting benefits. But the other people that are allowed to break the law, they're allowed to get benefits, they're allowed to have as many babies as they want without being penalized, and they can just kind of get away with whatever they want. They're allowed to bring gangs, they're allowed to join gangs and not be scrutinized, just be, pretend like it doesn't happen, pretend like it's never happened, it didn't exist. It's only happening in one group. They focus on one group and then ignore the others. Like when they say, oh, it's so much killing and so much, black on black crime, but there's white on white crime. So they focus more on the black on black crime. Or they say, oh, all these black people are getting killed, and there is stuff, and they highlight it, but then when white people get killed, you don't really hear very much about it, but it's happening too. Okay, you have these black women, they claiming that they're all, they're on the welfare. Now you've got these black women who are afraid to have too many babies because they can't afford it, because there's a lot of single women, or maybe, whatever the hype is, lies that they come up with. And then you turn around and then you have all these other women coming from all these other places who don't have citizenship having 1 million babies. They have a baby, they're pregnant every year. And you're wondering now, who's taking care of these kids? You are. As an American citizen, you're the taxpayer, and you're taking care of their glasses, their schooling, their food, and if they drop out of school, and if they do something, you're taking care of them. You're also housing them if they have to put them in an American prison, because they start looking at that when they're in grade school. If they don't do well in school, then they start focusing on, okay, let's see who's gonna fill up the prison population. And so maybe there's a method to some of this craziness, which is not good. Maybe they're thinking if they have more of these people like this, that they'll fill the prison population so that they can have cheap labor. So either way, there's law breaking going on all around, straight across the whole board. So some people are not really being honest here. So the thing that I'm seeing is that there are some black people who they don't support one another, but we're ready to support other people who don't support us. Now I'm going to raise that issue. So I think we need to think about who we support or whom we support and whom we shouldn't be supporting. And then you have some black people who they support some of these white supremacist governments and these politicians, but they feel that they're not being affected simply because they have similar ideologies or beliefs, but they don't realize that, hey, you're not white, you're black, or you don't fit in that class of people that is his primary target audience. But maybe in some circumstances there are some people who are in between. Now there are situations where some people politically are in between. They're like in between, or they're sort of partial or bipartial to some of these political issues and arguments. But if you think about it, there has been a lot of discrimination with black women having babies. So I personally, I'll be honest with you, I don't see a lot of that happening here in Los Angeles. I'll be honest with you, I don't see a lot of Pasadena. I see a lot of Hispanic babies. I see a lot of Mexican immigrants, people who are having or Latin origin, women that I see that are having babies. And I've seen this. Now I've mentioned this in a video prior that I seen that. Well, there's a story here, and I'll share this with you. There's a woman who every year she's pregnant, and she's Mexican. And I'm thinking, and I'm sure other people are thinking this because it's a stereotype. They think that, oh, the man is in Mexico working, or it's the kids are by the same father. Well, I've learned that they also have an issue with men being out of the home or having different baby daddies. So this woman has 9, she's working on baby number 9. And every baby is by a different baby daddy. Every one. And some of her kids are in a particular school that they put kids in who have disciplinary problems, behavior issues. So I'm already knowing that there's this one kid that I know that he's got issues. And I could see him easily joining a gang because he's looking for love and he's looking for a father figure, because there's different baby daddies. And he's stole money out of his mom's purse, and he takes the money and spends it. Then he tries to get in the car with strangers. It's just a lot of craziness. And so these stories are not talked about enough. Now when it's black people, all the bad, all the negative, all the ugly comes out. But when it's other people of other cultures, you don't hear as much of that. It's always hidden, or it's not talked about because they want to highlight only one group. And why? Because of the systematic and history of racism towards blacks. And so I would really think that some black people who are in support of these programs for these other minority groups would really think about where do you fit? Who are you really supporting? Are you supporting because you got a friend, or are you just doing it because you think it's the right thing to do? Where do you fit in this picture? If it were us, would they support us? So I just thought that was something that should be a question that should be brought up. But thanks for listening.